We're calling this A Few Points From Perfect.
Sounds like the perfect name to me.
I agree. The perfect podcast almost.
Well, that'll be to be determined. We're just getting started. We have no clue what we're doing, but we're going to give it our best shot.
That's right. You heard it here.
Well, you heard it here first because you can't hear it anywhere else. So.
I do like how we're both staring at the recording screen.
Yeah, well, this is new. We're used to seeing blinky red flashy lights.
That's true, yeah.
And now we get to see sound waves.
Yeah.
And my little sound perks are higher than yours. So.
Yeah, you're very competitive.
I am very competitive. It don't matter what we're doing.
You know what? I got the little thingy over here, and I can just turn your.
Now, don't be doing that. We'll have people mad at us on our first go around.
All right, so what are we doing here?
Well, we decided we've had some interest in doing a podcast because people just want to know more of the ins and outs. It's hard to cover everything on a YouTube video.
I agree.
And whenever you make a YouTube video, it's usually kind of more about what you did that day or how you went about doing that job. And a lot of the stuff of how you got to where you're at or a lot of the ins and outs of the business, they kind of get lost. And people want more details about that. So this will be another avenue for them to be able to get them.
So basically, this is how you answer all the comments on your YouTube video of how you did what you did and why you did what you did.
Well, if you want to simplify it, fine, yes.
Yeah. And why you didn't do what you didn't do?
Oh, that's like 6 podcasts over the course of, that's like 6-hour podcasts to answer all those questions. Yeah. We'll get to that eventually. Let's baby step into this thing.
Baby steps. I like baby steps. So, who the heck are you and who the heck am I?
These are both great questions, and I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
That's why I asked you first.
All right, so first off, I guess I'll give you a little bit of background on me if you guys don't know. My real name is Mike Simon. I've born and raised in southern Indiana, pretty much been here my whole life. I started, I did venture out a little bit for college, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I have been self-employed in the excavating business for almost 20 years. The road to how I got here is kind of direct, but just like everybody else, it had a lot of twists and turns to get here. Everybody in my family is self-employed, Jason.
Okay.
And whenever you're like in 5th grade in school and everybody asks you what you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
I knew I was the one kid that can answer. By the time I was 25, I knew I wanted to be self-employed. I haven't wavered for that from one time.
I know what you just said. But you gotta understand how you said it.
What did I say? From the time I was 25.
You know that question you got in 5th grade? Well, I knew by the time I was 25.
Okay, so this is why there's 2 of us, because you get to go back and correct me. Maybe I should have paid more attention in the listening class.
All I'm saying is I like my role in this game.
So, from the 5th grade on, I knew what I wanted to do. And I knew my goal always was, by the time I was 25, I wanted to be self-employed.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know what I wanted to do, what my business was, or what path I was going to go down, but that was my goal early on, was to be self-employed. And like I said, it has a lot to do with my family. On my mom's side of the family, everybody's self-employed. They've all ran successful businesses for years. My grandma and grandpa, my aunt and my uncle on that side. My dad's side of the family is quite a bit different. They were more blue-collar farmers. My dad grew up on a farm, worked in a coal mine his whole life. It was... my childhood was really interesting because on one side of the family was the suits and ties, and on the other side of the family was the bib overalls. So I really got.
They ever come together for like Thanksgiving?
There would have been some good YouTube videos at Christmas from time to time. Let me tell you.
Dickies doesn't make a 3-piece suit, do they?
Well, a couple rednecks can make one. I don't know if Dickies will put their name on it, but we've seen some interesting stuff. So anyways, from pretty much from that point on, I started working towards that. We can talk about this in a different podcast, but I had some teachers throughout high school that really helped me get to where I'm at today, and I had some teachers that strongly discouraged me from getting to where I'm at today.
Really?
And that's I'm very, very passionate about the trades, and I think a lot of that comes from, I graduated college 20 years ago. This is 2020. I graduated in 2000. And back whenever I was going to college, if you weren't striving for a 4-year degree, you were, I'll just say it, you're basically considered an idiot or a loser. Mm-hmm. I had no interest in a 4-year degree at all. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, I want my doctor to go to get a 4-year degree, or how many years they go to school, my lawyer, all those good people. The guy that builds your house don't need a 4-year degree. He needs experience.
I would agree with that, yeah.
That's what he needs is experience. So I did go to I did go to college and get a 2-year degree. I went to Lincoln Tech. I got a 2-year degree in applied science from college. I actually went to work at a Mack truck dealership. I hired in as a night shift oil change mechanic. I worked there for 4 days and was promoted to assistant service manager.
Wow.
So I
You
went
really
from,
didn't think highly of their managers.
I didn't. I went from the lowest guy on the totem pole out of 70 people in the shop to the second in charge.
Look at you go.
Well, let me tell you, I'm not sure. I didn't know what I was saying yes to. I'll say that much. I worked there for about 2 years at the Mack truck dealership, and it was an awesome experience. And I will say this: I gained a lot of management experience, a lot of business experience, a lot of hands-on shop experience. The amount of stuff I learned at 2 years at that dealership would have took me years and years of college. I mean, you just learn stuff there that you don't learn in college. It's real world. It's real life experiences. There was a whole bunch of circumstances, and this was also around 9/11. So after about 2 years, that kind of ran its course. And before I went to college, I actually worked for a contractor in town. And I went back to work for that contractor. He did mostly remodel work, commercial and residential. So I went back to him, and he knew, I was 22 years old at this time, he knew that I wanted to start my own business. I was very open and honest with him about that, but I wasn't quite ready to take the leap to do that yet. So he made me promise him that I'd work for him for 2 years. And I said, that's fine. I'll work for you for 2 years, no big deal. I ended up working for him for almost 5 years, I guess. Not quite 5 years. There was a couple transition years in there a little bit. But I kind of worked into a place there. He got a contract with McDonald's, and believe it or not, I used to travel around and remodel McDonald's. That was my job for almost 2 years.
Is that where your love for Pepsi came from?
No, because McDonald's serves Coke.
Oh, that's right, they do.
Yeah, man, I am so disappointed in you right now.
But you want not to frequent McDonald's.
You know, this is totally off base. This is totally random. You know how everybody always says McDonald's has the best Coke? Like their recipe is different at McDonald's. Have you ever heard that?
I've never heard that.
You never heard that?
I've never heard.
Oh.
I know McDonald's has larger straws.
This is true, but everybody always talks about how McDonald's has the best Cokes. They must have special syrup because they got the best Cokes.
Now I think, we're going way off in the weeds already.
We are.
I think fountain soda tastes better.
Oh, you have lost your mind, boy.
You think canned is better?
Canned's better than anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
What about glass bottle?
Glass, well, yeah, they're heavier, so they take more effort to get to your mouth, but. So anyway.
Okay. On that note.
So this is the way it goes. If you want to be truthful about it, glass is probably the best.
Okay.
Cans are a really close second. Then you go to fountain, and then you go to god-awful plastic.
Oh, like a 2 liter.
Yeah,
okay.
that's the bottom of the barrel right there. So anyways, to answer the question that I asked myself, because you went off base over here, is the reason why McDonald's Cokes are so good is because they spend a tremendous amount of money on a water filtration system. So it don't matter where you're at in the country, the water is filtered the same to mix with the syrup, and that's why you get a priceless Coke.
Are you
I know more about McDonald's.
I was saying, are you putting our podcast in jeopardy before it even gets off the ground?
No, but I know more about
secrets?
McDonald's. This is like perfect dirt right here.
Uh-huh.
I know more about McDonald's and their processes of how they cook a cheeseburger than I ever care to know. Let me tell you.
I can tell you that there is a cast iron Ronald McDonald in my family.
Really?
Yes. As well as 2/3 of a Hamburglar.
Well, we could get way off base on this. We're going to go back.
That'll be way down the road before we get there.
So, anyways, on that note, so I worked for Bernie for a couple years. That was a contractor. And I kind of started catching a little bit of steam, and I kind of figured out what my business wanted to be. My passion was dirt work. I wanted to do dirt work. I didn't have $200,000 to dump into equipment to go into the dirt work business. So I stumbled across this thing called ICF, which is insulated concrete block forms. And I thought, man, I could start doing some foundation work. It'd be a little bit of excavating. I could still do some of the building. Maybe this is a way to kind of tiptoe into it without spending a whole bunch of money, because my startup cost was pretty low. So kind of put some feelers out there, and I got 1 basement, and I got 2 basements, and then I got a whole ICF house, and next thing I know, we're kind of off and running. And it caught fire pretty quick. It caught fire way quicker than I thought it was going to. Over the course of about 1.5 years or 2 years, I should note in there at this time I'm 25 and I'm 4 days away from being 26. All right?
Okay.
I officially quit burning and call myself self-employed. So I made my 25.
Okay, I was wondering where you were going.
Yeah. So I got married, quit my job, and went full time on my own all in a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Jenna's. I'm 15 or 13 years later. I'm still not sure she's happy about that. But so what we did, better or worse, we're going for a ride, baby.
Hey, till death do us part, right?
So
come sooner for some.
So I kind of started out on my own, and actually Captain Kleeman, if you guys watch my YouTube channel, he was in college at the time. Whenever he got home from college, he actually came to work for me full time. And over the course of about 1.5 years, I went from, I don't know if this is going to work, to how am I going to do all this work I got? I mean, it just really took off, which was kind of crazy because we were in a little bit of a recession there, but I just kind of kept building somehow. And
this is around
2007, 2008,
okay.
Right in there.
Got it.
So I couldn't afford to hire somebody with the skills to be like a bidder, estimator, kind of run in front of me doing what I need to be done. Because whenever you're building, at this point we were building entire houses. I went from putting foundations in to building custom homes. And those are very in-depth and very detailed bids. There's a lot of numbers going on. It takes some time. Custom home, when you're building a custom home for a customer, there's a lot of interaction that has to help with that customer. There's 300 decisions that has to be made.
So essentially, you were the builder of the house, as well as the general contractor on the job.
Well, yeah, and the interior designer and customer relations, and it got overwhelming real quick. And one of the guys I used to work with at Bernie's, his brother, which I loosely knew, he had a business degree from IU, and he lived away from here, and him and his family wanted to come back. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do, so he approached me about going in with partners in the construction business. And I despise sitting at my desk doing office work. It's just not my thing. I like to be on the ground, boots on the ground, getting muddy, tools in my hand, that stuff.
This is very ironic.
He's the exact opposite of me.
Right.
You know what I mean? He would go do that, but he just seemed to be in the office, and he was a number nerd and everything else. Mm-hmm. So he said, well, he agreed to kind of come on board with me. I couldn't afford to pay him, so we basically went partners in a business relationship, and that was a separate company. My actual main company that I originally started was called Simon's Concrete and Excavating. He wanted to buy into that. I said, no, I want to keep that. It's mine, because I already had a bunch of equipment. I had a bunch of assets. I had stuff that was already mine. I said, if you want to build something together, we'll do that. Over. We'll start over.
Protect your assets.
I want what I have to stay what I got. And if we want to start over and start something from scratch, let's do it.
Now, at this point, what equipment did you already have?
At this point, whenever this happened, is I had a U35 Kubota excavator. I had an old R model Mack. I had a 450 case dozer, a real small POS case dozer. I had a single axle dump truck, and I had just bought the 120.
And I think that's a good story worth telling, is when you bought the 120.
You get sidetracked on that.
I think that's one that's worth getting sidetracked.
So I was looking to buy. This story could be a podcast in itself.
Well, let's give the cliff notes of it. I like.
All right,
story.
so I'll get. We'll kind of go on here a little bit. This is actually my beginning of my despise of my John Deere dealer that I just to this day cannot stand. So I kind of been shopping around. I decided I wanted a 120 size machine, and I kind of knew somewhat what I wanted as far as a quick attach and the thumb and stuff like that. And I didn't have a whole lot of money to spend. I mean, I'm still just as broke as I was then, but I had less funds available to me, I guess would be the best way to put it. I wasn't willing to take $100,000 leap of faith. I wanted something $30,000-$40,000. So I knew that I was probably going to buy something rough, and with my mechanical skills, I'd have to find a way to make it work for a while until I could build up to the next one. Mm-hmm. So I found one at the local John Deere dealer, It was a 120, had a no thumb, but I had a coupler on it, and I only had like 5,000 hours on it. And I found one on eBay, and the dealer wouldn't give me a price. I'm like, all right. So I started talking about the guy on eBay. He was out in Seattle, Washington. For you guys that don't know, we're located in Indiana. It was like 2,000 miles away. So I finally went down to the dealer, and the salesman was just an absolute ASS. And I finally asked him, I said, what do you want for that machine? Keep in mind, the one on eBay, they were asking $32,000 for. It had 2 buckets, hydraulic thumb. I mean, 6,000 hours, dealer certified. Said he wanted $64,000 for it. And of course, I'm 26 years old at this time. I just straight up laughed at him. He laughed back at me. He goes, you're not going to buy a machine anyways. You're just wasting my time. I said, okay. I walked out to the parking lot, bought the machine on eBay in his parking lot. It's the best decision I ever made because it ended up being a lot nicer machine than the one sitting on the lot down there. Mm-hmm. So then I bought this machine. Got about 4 weeks before it gets home. I'm like, all right, I got 4 weeks to tell Jenna I bought a machine. Jenna being my wife. So a week went by, and I'm like, I got 3 weeks to tell Jenna.
Amazing how
another week went by. I'm like, wow, time is flying.
Imagine that.
Another week went by. I'm like, all right, it's getting close. It's getting close. Another week went by, and it's sitting in the driveway. And Jenna comes home one day. She's like, what's that? I said, I got a basement coming up. I need to dig a basement, so I rented it. She goes, really? I said, well, it's kind of a one-time rent-to-own deal. But
speaking of own, we already do.
She was not a happy camper. I'm like, listen, I said it's a revenue-generating asset. It'll be fine, I'm sure. At that time, I had no idea it'd be fine. I mean, nowadays, a $30,000 purchase, I mean, it's still scary, and I still think about it, but it's not like life or death. You know what I mean?
Right.
That was a life or death purchase.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
That was.
I mean, it's a lot of money still, but it's.
It is, but you know, I could absorb that if it went the wrong way. Now I could not back then. I mean, that
Right.
had to work. Hindsight being 20/20, and fast forward to where we're at now, it's by far the best decision I ever made was buying that machine. But at that point, I had no idea which way it was going to go. So, Josh was my business partner at the time. We started a company called Simon Harris Construction, and we specialized in ICF construction. That became our niche, and we had a good run at it. We basically went 10 years. We went from like 2009 or late 2008 to basically the end of 2018.
Okay.
And we probably built. I've never actually went back and counted. But I'd say we built well over 100 houses. We built a couple $1 million homes. We won some international prizes for some of the houses we built. We got to be very well known throughout the ICF industry, throughout the country. We had a lot of success. I mean, we did a lot of good things. It became a very hectic lifestyle, though, because I was still trying to juggle. Running Simon's Concrete and Excavating somewhere in the background. Keep in mind, 90% of the excavating I did was for Simon Harris Construction. We had a bunch of employees. I think at one time we had seven or 10 employees. We had 3 or 4 houses going at one time. Josh was doing all the paperwork and the bidding, and I was doing all the running the jobs. But we were so busy, I wasn't actually, running equipment or using tools. I was just.
You became the general contractor.
I became the general contractor. I was running from job to job to job, making sure everything was done right, making sure everything showed up, making sure everybody had a job, making sure everybody was being efficient.
Which you still would consider yourself a small business at that point.
Oh yeah, we were definitely a small business, but we were the issue right there is it's so hard to scale that. It's like you have to go from building 5 houses a year to 50 houses a year. That in between land.
Right.
Is a difficult place to be because it's so hard to be efficient with your helping everybody because everything's in a different stage and you're moving. It's just we tried a couple different variances of that and we had success at it, but it was a struggle. Mm-hmm. Especially with 2 of us taking income out of the business and all the employees and all the overhead that come with that. It was a struggle. I guess struggle I would use loosely. I don't want to sound like it was a failure because it was a far cry from a failure. But after 10 years, it became apparent to both of us that we weren't where we wanted to be our goals that we set out for ourselves 10 years prior to that when we started the business, we weren't there. Josh, my business partner, had some other opportunities to do some stuff in the community. He actually took over a church as a pastor. That was some of his background, and then he had a chance to check over as a director of the Habitat, which, that was kind of his niche. That was his passion. He was able to go back to that. Fortunately, from the decision I made before, I never sold out Simon C&E, so I still owned all this equipment.
Right.
I had a fully operating business to go into. It was 100% mine. Nobody else had their hands into. So basically, at the going into the fourth quarter of 2018, Josh and I sat down and we finally decided it was time to pull the plug on that. A couple different things fed into it. It was getting tough to find good help and keep good help. Lumber prices were going up, margins were getting smaller. It was pretty clear at that point we weren't going to reach our goals, so we needed to do something different, and both of us were in agreement on that. Josh and I still have a good relationship today. We're doing a job for him right now on the Habitat. So at that point, my goal was to go back into the excavating business. I had no desire not to be self-employed anymore. I was just going to go a different direction because excavating was always my passion. I just never could find a way to make a good living at it. But at this point, I'd accumulated enough equipment. I'd got my name out there. We can do something. We can do something now. So, a fun random fact, I have never once ever advertised my excavating business.
I think you've mentioned that before. And
Never
I think
once.
a lot of people would. I know you, so I can understand that, and I can see how it happens. But I think a lot of people would almost struggle to believe that. How busy you stay.
Whenever we had the construction business, we advertised that pretty regularly. I have never, ever advertised the excavating business. Never. And I mean, was there a little bit of fear that I'm going to stop building houses and all of a sudden going full-time excavating? I never missed a beat. I mean, I went from stop building houses to I am covered up excavating. I mean, it was crazy how fast that transition went. So basically at the end of 2018, Josh and I started implementing we're going to go our different ways. Most of 2019 was a transition year. So whenever Josh and I decided the fourth quarter of 2018 that we're quitting this, I had this grand idea. I'm like, well, this whole business is going away. I'm going to have all kinds of free time. And I should add, at this point, my kids are 4 and 9. They're getting older. They're starting getting into stuff. And it was pretty clear I was going to spend a lot of time away from them. So I needed to lose something. I had to get rid of something. But I'm a guy that has to stay busy all the time.
Yeah.
So I got, for you guys that don't know, I got this crazy neighbor called Logger Wade.
And we'll hopefully have him.
Well, hopefully we'll have him on here sometime. I've known Wade for a good time, and they're good. He's a good guy. He's been doing a YouTube thing for a long time.
I think 10 years?
10 or 11 years. Yeah. And he's been after me for a long time to start a YouTube channel. And I, with running 2 businesses and everything going on, I didn't have time. And I'm kind of glad I didn't start a YouTube channel back when I was doing the construction business, because it would have been a totally different channel than what I got now.
Right.
I was not a happy, fun person back then. The stress level was several notches higher. Not to take anything away from Jeff or Muddy Feet Concrete, but I see a lot of myself in him, where he's just going from job to job to job, just doing what needs to be done and never being able to sit still. I'm not saying his stress level's through the roof or saying anything bad about Jeff. Whenever I watch a Muddy Feet video, a lot of flashbacks come through my head. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Wade had also just shared with me that he signed a deal with History Channel and he was going to be on the show Axeman.
Right.
And I'm thinking, all right, you know what, if now's the time to quit, Wade's got the TV deal, I'm giving up Simon Harris, I'm going back into excavating. If I'm going to do a YouTube channel, why not? Now's the time to do it.
Right.
There's no time like the present.
Right.
Let's do it. So, of course, I'm kind of a goal-oriented person, so November of 2018, I posted my first video.
Yep.
I told Jenna, my wife, I said, I'm gonna try this YouTube thing with the excavating business and see how it goes. She straight up laughed at me. I mean, straight up laughed at me. Okay.
I love that story.
I mean, so she didn't give me the time of day. And I told her, I said, whenever you start a YouTube channel, if you guys that don't know, it takes what they call 1K, 4K. 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours to get monetized.
Right.
That's kind of the first big threshold of you've kind of made it on YouTube. So I told her, I said, I'm going to do this for a year. I said, if I don't have 1,000 subscribers, I'm not monetized, or I'm not enjoying it, after a year, I'm going to quit. But I feel like that I need to give myself a year to give it a try. And which is another point I need to bring up. So many people try stuff for 3 weeks and quit. You don't know whether you like something after 3 weeks and quit. You got to stick with it long enough to see the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs.
If they even stick with it for 3 weeks, honestly. I mean, with, this is me getting off a little bit. Again, I'm good at that.
You are.
I am. But, with everything anymore, with the electronic binkies that everybody has in their hand all the time, their attention spans have gone down so much. Going back to YouTube, to bring it around full circle, if you make a video that's an hour and 15 minutes long, I mean, it's pretty easy to make a video an hour and 15 minutes long. It's a lot more challenging to make one 25 minutes to a half an hour. And I think that you're really grasping. You better make that video interesting if you're going to have a long video.
Yep.
No one's going to get through it.
Yep. So, I thought, what, like I said before, there's no time like the present. I'm going to try this thing. So the first, I don't know, probably 25 or 30 videos, I just filmed with my iPhone. That's all I had. So November of 2018, I posted my first few videos. November going into December, I got some interest, nothing crazy. I didn't even tell Wade I started a YouTube channel. I'm like, I'm just going to keep this on the down low. It's kind of weird when you start a YouTube channel. You don't want your local community to know. You want the world to know.
I'm still at that point, actually. I've been doing YouTube for 2.5, 3 years, and I still won't tell my close friends, family, or coworkers.
Anyways, about the first year in January, things kind of started clicking along a little bit. I'm like, all right, we're getting somewhere. Skip forward to March, and I'm monetized. Mm-hmm. Skip forward to...
I remember that.
Yeah, skip forward to the end of the year, and I got 20,000 subscribers.
I remember that, too.
I'm like, this is going to be a crazy ride. I can see where this is going. So, I also should add in there, I mean, I don't think it's any big secret, but, we get monetized on YouTube, and we do get paid.
Yeah. Although the pay scale between people is worlds different.
And I know this is a little bit unique to me, and I don't mind sharing this with you guys, but believe it or not, my very first check I ever received from YouTube was over $1,000.
And I'll note that my first check was $150.
Which is probably more common, to be honest with you.
I would think so, yeah.
But the only reason I tell you guys that my first check was $1,000 is because from that point, Jenna went from that's funny to that's funny to what's coming next month. So
well, I want a car.
Yeah, she's 100% on board now. Right. We got a new pair of shoes involved. We are doing this thing. Right. But I have.
Well, I think, not to cut you off, but to interject a point that I've noticed from being on the outside of I'm going to call it success. I know you're too humble to call it that, but I'm going to call it the outside looking in at your YouTube success. You've still only ever really considered it a hobby.
Yes, that's
you don't make videos for the dollar.
Nope. Yeah, that's 100% true, and I have tried really hard. YouTube is kind of like a big magnet. Like once you start catching traction, it just keeps sucking you in harder and harder.
Oh, yeah.
And I've pushed back and resisted that quite a bit. I'm pretty steadfast on. I've had a lot of sponsorship opportunities, but for every one I've taken, I've turned down 50.
Yep.
Some of them because they wanted to control me. I'll say it like that. And I'm like, nope, it's for a hobby. I'm doing it. Some of these companies are large companies, and they think I'm crazy when I'm telling them no. I'm like, you're not telling me what to do. It's a hobby. It's what I do for fun.
Yeah.
I'm not playing your game.
Yeah.
It's just I'm not doing it. I don't want it to. I do not want YouTube to be a job. I want it to be something I do for fun. Walter Wade told me whenever I started YouTube that the best thing that'll ever come out of YouTube is the people you meet.
I would agree with that.
And that could not be more truthful. I have met some incredible people. I mean, the list just goes on and on. I mean, me and you wouldn't be sitting here together if it wasn't for YouTube.
That's the absolute truth.
And another thing Logger Wade said is YouTube is very good at aligning like-minded people. They know your interest because of your watch history, and they pair you with people like that.
Right.
So that's been a very good surprise. And then I'm not going to downplay that the opportunities and the doors that it's opened for me has been awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's also been good for the business. I've got some business from YouTube. I guess you could loosely consider that advertising.
I don't think it's any different than somebody driving down the street and seeing a job you're on. I wouldn't consider it advertising. You're not. Well, I guess you are putting the content out there, but
the purpose of it's not to get jobs, though.
right.
You know, the purpose of the content's more of I'd say mostly entertaining, slightly educational. Here's what I'm up to today.
Right.
Watch if you want to. Don't if you don't watch if
Right.
you want. So the bigger the YouTube monster gets in my life, the harder it is to keep it a hobby. But we can cover this in another video about how I go about filming, how I go about editing, how I go about uploading, how I go about scheduling. It allows me to do it on my own leisure and never force anything.
And I think that's going to be that'll definitely be an entire episode in itself, because you've figured this out almost like a science.
Yeah, I've got it down to where I can I know what I can do, and I know what I can manage.
Right.
And that's the bubble I live in. I don't get outside of it.
Yeah. So time management is important.
It's key. I mean, and you got to have the best laid plans. Always got to have room for adjustment.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So you got to have wiggle room in there to make it all work. I see so many YouTubers that just they feel like I gotta have a video today, and they just film the stupidest thing you ever seen in your life just to say they posted a video.
Right.
You would have been better off staying in bed.
Yes.
You know,
there's something to be said about what your time is worth too.
You're better off having one good video that gets 10,000 views than you are having 10 videos that get 1,000 views.
Oh yeah, because it comes down to YouTube's algorithm, and it comes down to everything that they look at and why they look at what they look at. And so, I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out YouTube's algorithm. You just got to chase the almighty dollar, looking at it from their point of view.
Right. So basically at this point, 2019 was a transition year. We had some contracts in the Simon Harris world we had to wrap up. I was ramping up Simon C&E at the same time, which now is pretty much known as dirtperfect. And 2020 was going to be, all right, it's 2020. It's 100% dirtperfect. You know, Simon Harris stuff's all wrapped up in the background. We're going to hit the ground running. We're going to do this, and then the virus hits, and
the world ended.
The world ends. But
you've been busy though.
I cannot complain. This has been the busiest and one of the best years I've ever had in business. It's by far been the most enjoyable year I've had in business. In part, and I hope anybody don't take this anyway, I don't have any full-time employees. I've got some awesome.
You've got a lot of friends that hang out with you at work.
I do have a lot of friends that hang out with me at work.
That may or may not get paid on occasion.
I've got some awesome guys that I can call as needed. You know, Aaron, man behind the scenes, he's a full-time boilermaker. He's laid off most of the year, works for me. Matt, I call Mr. Millennial. NYA Millennials is his actual YouTube channel. He owns his own business as an independent sales rep. He's kind of trying to get that up and going. He fills in and works for me. I got Jerry, the dozer operator. I got Captain Cleveland, which is a firefighter and laid off, which is nice because if I don't need them, they're not dependent on me to make their mortgage or their pay or their food. Right. But they love working for me and get a little bit extra money, and we all get along and have so much fun together. It never seems like work. Right.
And I think that's portrayed well in your videos on YouTube.
And so that's been a big part of it. I don't mind admitting I thoroughly enjoy YouTube about 90% of it. There's some things that get under your crawl and end up being a little bit of a drag, but
there's crevices and corners to it that you don't realize when you first start.
But 90% of it I enjoy. I love the people. I love interacting with them. Everybody on the job sites has kind of got accustomed to filming and actually enjoys that. Nobody's not afraid to grab a camera and film a little piece. May use it, may not, but you got it to use. Yeah. Just like today, I lost my camera, Matt finds it, and then he's walking behind me, filming me, looking for my camera. You know, just stuff like that. You know, it's just fun, and it's not like we're forcing it or making it up. It's what we do. It's real life. It is what it is. So, but that brings us to 2020. That's current 2020. I mean, it's even with the virus and everything going on, YouTube is doing really well. The business is doing really well. The family's doing good. It's been a goofy year, but it's been a really good year. I'm kind of excited to see where YouTube goes. I'm excited to see where the business goes. I'm kind of finding my niche and finding my rhythm and everything again. And life's good, man. I can't complain. Life's good.
It's good.
So, all right, I've rambled on for 35 minutes and 43 seconds about myself.
I gotta say, the only thing that I've really taken from that is I should have went first because I'm not that interesting. Yeah, I guess I follow the same story path that you did. My name is Jason. Works a lot. I do enjoy my privacy, so I generally don't put my name up on the internet.
I passed that. That
yours
bridge
has been plastered on the side of a door for a while.
Yeah.
I'm still amazed you don't get
that
phone
ship
calls.
is done sailed.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah. So I go by Jason Works a lot, and my wife, whose first name is Ashton, goes by Wifey Works a lot. And when I first, actually, this is before I get into that, the reasoning why I like my privacy is that I had a bunch of random people somehow find out what my email address was when I first started YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, because they found out my wife's information somehow through Facebook, and somehow used that information to find my email address, which I just got freaked out by. So I don't give out any information.
Randomly, I haven't. Fortunately, knock on wood. I'm gonna steer us off. That's what you did to me. I'm gonna steer us off here, but. The way my compound is set up is my house is not located at my office. I'm kind of secluded on a pretty much no man's land. And then where I call it my office, is also where our market's at.
Right.
That's what everybody, it's right out mainstream. So
yeah, and you're able to hide.
You're
not finding your house without knowing where you're going.
I have a lot of people that stop by the market looking for me.
Right.
Just the other day, my mom, which operates the market, she took a picture of somebody taking a picture in front of one of the trucks, you know.
Right.
But I've had a few random phone calls. I'll get a few random emails, but 90% of my fan interactions have been awesome, and I've not really ever been bombarded with a bunch of stuff.
I had an individual reach out to me looking for a job and got a little bit displeased when I said, I don't hire people. Sorry. And all of my businesses have been registered and operated out of my home address.
Yeah.
So
that's one advantage. I just wanted to clarify. That's one advantage I have over you, the way I'm set up.
And I've made the subconscious decision that it's no secret we're moving out this way, and when we move out this way, it'd be a little different, But so it's 2020, and I was born in '91, so that makes me 29.
God, you're a young pup.
I am.
I was born in *81.
Yeah. I know.
That makes me almost 40. What do you get me for my birthday?
I don't know. I've gotten you a few gifts before.
Actually, you delivered a few this trip.
That's true, yeah. Maybe I'll just hand off the lathe. So I led a pretty boring life. I found a four-wheeler in the woods when I was in high school, and that was basically where my life started to get interesting. It turned out to be stolen, but didn't know that at the time. And before that happened, or before we found out that it was stolen, my father and I and the kid up the street ripped that entire engine apart, rebuilt the damn thing. And
really?
That's where my fascination with mechanics came from. And
you want to know my first mechanic story?
Yeah. I
found a 1919 Briggs & Stratton washing machine engine.
Oh, yeah?
I had
a hit and miss, or?
No, it was a 4-stroke.
Okay.
And it was kickstart. And I had an 8 o'clock curfew, and I knew I couldn't get this thing done before 8 o'clock, so I snuck it into a shoebox in my closet. So after I went to bed, I'd go in there and work on it. Well, there was one flaw in my plan. I forgot to drain the gas out of it. I spilled it on the carpet.
I'm going to have to ask your mom about this.
You ask Mom about this. She will tell you this story. She was not happy.
I wonder why.
But that thing ran like a sewing machine after I got done.
And I used that sewing machine to make a new carpet.
Mom loves telling that story. Yeah. Ask her about it.
Yeah, so we found that 4-wheeler and we got it running. I mean, the thing smoked like a bandit.
Every fool I've ever worked on smoked.
Yeah, it was a Suzuki LT160. So it was like a little kid's machine, but it was 4-stroke. The thing smoked worse than a 2-stroke. The valve seals were burnt out of it. Yeah. So I mean, I remember my dad bought the Climber manual. It was showing some age. You know?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, what's a manual? It didn't go on Google? No, we had the manual. We followed the manual to a T, rebuilt top end on this thing, and it ran great. And, then apparently someone found out that I had it, and it was fixed now, and I told the person who owned the thing, and then the cops came, and they're like, that's not yours.
That's
no, it's not. It's like, I never said it was mine. I just found it.
You're welcome for the tune-up, by the way.
They actually paid us back for it.
Really?
Yeah, we gave them receipts.
Well, that was awful nice.
Yeah, it was. They paid us for it. But so then I got bit by that itch and begged, borrowed, and stole, and got as much money as I possibly could, and bought my first 4-wheeler, and then I started racing them. And all this was going on. I was getting ready to go to high school, and where I grew up, which was southeastern Pennsylvania, we had a regular high school, and then we had a technical high school.
Man, I wish we had that where I was at. We had vocational classes.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't quite like what you did.
Yeah, see, it was a full dedicated school to the trades, and my father actually went here when he was in high school, and when he went there, you had to spend a week at your home school for academics, and then you would spend a week in the tech school and go back and forth. When I went, everything was in that school, self-contained. We had academics and the tech side rotation. You spent 6 days on your academics, and then you flipped 6 days into your shop class. And on your shop class side, you would have PE. So basically, I would go into school at, I forget when it started, I'm going to say 7 o'clock in the morning. I had 45 minutes of PE in the morning, and then the rest of the day, I was in shop class for 6 days. Yeah. And I went through, when you went in 9th grade, you had to spend half of the year going through every single shop. So I went through marketing, I went through engineering, civil engineering, I went through computer sciences, I went through cosmetology. I did. I learned how to braid hair, and I learned how to give a manicure, and I haven't done it since.
That's my mom growing up was a beautician, so I got experimented on a few times. I kind of feel your pain there.
Yeah. So I went through all of them, and then I went through the automotive classes, and I went through the diesel technology class, and then I went through, it was called outdoor power equipment. Which was small engines, marine technology, and motorcycle repair.
Well, if you need any help with those washing machine mowers, I got your back.
I got a lot of certifications.
Just drain the gas before you take them in the house.
Yeah, I will. So I went through that class, and I knew that I was going to do something with my hands. Truth be told, I wanted to be a police officer, but I just could fix stuff, so I ended up, that was easy. It was like, oh, this is going to be really hard, and I'm fat and out of shape. I don't think I can do the
decision
PT
made.
Yeah, and I can do this. It comes natural. So you had to actually go on a mock interview with these shop teachers.
Yep.
And you had to apply to be in their class, and naturally, I picked the class with like the drill sergeant teacher who was impossible, and he was very strict. And it was the best decision I ever made in my life, and I still talk to him to this day. I credit a lot of my success to him. But so I went through this, and to give you an idea of how strict this class was, I got into it in 9th grade. There was 21 of us, 21 students that got accepted into it. When I graduated, there was 3 of us.
Whenever not to get off base here, but I went to Lincoln Technical College in Indianapolis. We started off with 600 people in our class. And we went 18 months straight. It was actually 24 months straight, but the last, it was 24 months. The last 2.5 months were basically an internship. We graduated 23.
Yep. It's amazing how that works.
I was top of my class, but, I didn't really have a whole lot of competition. The rest of them weren't there.
So, I got into this outdoor power equipment knowing that all I wanted to do was motorcycle repair because I just wanted to know how to make my quad faster than everybody else's quad. It's truly the whole reasoning behind this decision. And coincidentally, my teacher, his name is Jeff Cesare. You could actually look him up, Cesare Motorsports. But he built and raced drag motorcycles. And the man was a very impressive person. He would never admit to it. He held many patents in the United States. He held a few in Japan. He had a patent on a slipper clutch that he sold to Kawasaki. And I got to work side by side with this guy for 4 years, 6 days in a row for the school year. And I would go during the summer. He taught summer classes to the adults, and the high school was right up the street from where I grew up. So I would go up there. I used to ride my quad up through the woods and then park in the back there, and it was good. But so I went through that class, and I ended up graduating first in the class there. Learned a lot about motorcycles. My senior graduation project was putting a Suzuki 400cc twin motor in a golf cart. It did wheelies for a while.
I got a golf cart.
Yeah, I got a couple motors.
I see a marriage coming.
Yeah. So I did all that, and another thing that my teacher was really good for was he wouldn't let you waste potential. So when I went to high school, and then I left high school and went to work. I've had a job since I was 14 years old and don't really ever plan to change that. So I never did any extracurricular activities, never cared to. Well, I'm not sure if you've heard of Skills USA.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I that was Vika?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, well, don't get me started on Vika.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, oh boy.
Bad subject?
Bad subject.
Oh, boy, I'm sorry. I'm going to get you started.
You're going to get me round up.
That is a good subject for me.
That's how,
oh, boy. Well, I'm going to tell my life story still. It wasn't Vika anymore. It was Skills USA now. So my teacher signed me up, unbeknownst to me, to Skills USA to compete in the field of motorcycle mechanics. And Skills USA...
I competed in plumbing.
You dummy. Brandon.
No, I was smart. Because you know what I did? Is I looked down through the list. Oh, there's only 4 people interested in plumbing. Bingo. Oh, my God. Less competition. What I didn't know is one of the other 3 guys, his dad was the president of the local chapter. He was winning no matter what I did. And he did.
Oh, that ain't right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, one of my best friends, Brandon behind the scenes, now he's been called. Thanks for starting that. He was in my class as well. We've known each other since high school. And he got signed up by the same misfortune that I did. My teacher said, you guys will do good. And he got signed up for marine technology, which he really should have went for small engines because he would have done a lot better.
Yeah.
But so the way it works is that I went to Bucks County Technical High School, which happened to be the only technical high school in the county. So naturally, I won the district level competition by default. And he didn't tell us this. He still hasn't told us that we're even competing. So the next level is state competition. So it would have been Hershey, Pennsylvania. And
there's not a town named Hershey.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
There's not a town named Hershey.
Well, I traveled there. I got off the Hershey exit of the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
Derby Township.
Yeah, well, listen. This is my
I'm just telling you.
This is my story.
I'm telling you, that's a fake town. That's a fake town.
Well, I went to that fake town.
Fake town. Fake
so
news.
2 days before I had to go to this competition in the fake town,
Derby Township,
Pennsylvania, my teacher tells me, oh, by the way, I signed you up for Skills USA and you're going to be competing in the field of motorcycle repair. And I said, come again? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, when is it? And he said, it's on Monday. And I said, like next month Monday? He said, no, like this is Friday. You've got 2 days to prepare. I said, what the hell? I'm in the middle of trying to get this stupid engine into a golf cart that's never going to fit. And I'm like terrified I'm going to fail because I'm running out of time in the school year, And he drops this on me. And I'm like, are you kidding? So he's like, you'll be fine. It's dirt bikes, a couple quads, and Harley Davidson.
Same thing my teacher said. It's just a couple drain lines and a copper line. You'll be fine.
I was like, I hate Harleys. Like, what the hell? He's like, you'll be all right. Whatever. So I show up on Monday and get on the bus with all the other people who are all excited to be doing this, and I'm pissed off. I'm like, I can't believe I'm wasting my time. This is so stupid. And I won. I won gold medal.
Well, I didn't win.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can't all be winners.
Well, I lost to a guy that ran his drain line uphill and tried to solder his plastic pipe. I'm telling you now. It's that bad.
I'm sorry.
Well, you know how they announced the top 5 up there on stage?
Uh-huh.
You know, they announced number 5. I'm like, all right.
I thought there was only 4 guys.
Well, there was 6. They announced number 5. I'm like, all right, I probably got 4th. You know, announced 4th. Like, oh, man, I got 3rd. Announced 3rd. I'm like, oh, 2nd's not bad. So now second. So then it's me and the guy next to me that ran his drain line up here. Like, I got this thing in the bag. I won this. And they call us, and I'm like, you what? It's red. You're kidding me. The whole way home, of course, you know me. I get fired up. So Mr. Rice was the teacher. The whole way home, I'm up there. I'm fired up. He's like, you have got to calm down. I'm like, did you see his work? I mean, I am fired up.
The high school dirt perfect.
So, yeah, I mean, I am fit to be tied because I knew I just got rooked. I don't know if rook's the word, but I'm making it up. So then I go to college.
Uh-huh.
And the college is hosting the auto mechanic side. And they asked me if I want to help, like do the thing.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm still like butthurt over it.
I would be too.
I'm like, because I won I got second place.
Yeah.
I won a $50 hacksaw. The guy that got first that tried to solder his plastic pipe and ran his drain line uphill, he got a $5,000 scholarship. Like the spread between second and first is like Trump tire versus, the dumpster. You
might want to plug your ears for the rest of my story then.
So I'm fit to be tied. So anyways, I'm helping with this competition at the college.
Uh-huh.
This little guy, I'm like, where'd you come from? Come to find out his dad's the president of the local I'm like, this isn't, I was, last thing I'm helping. All right, anyways.
You didn't go to law school.
I'm done.
So, so I went, I guess, where was I?
I done forgot.
Yeah. I went.
You were competing and you won.
Yeah, I won. So
because I didn't win and I got sidetracked.
You were upset. Yeah, that's right. So
I'm still upset. That was like 19 years. No, it was 22 years ago.
Oh man,
I'm over it. I'm done. I'm not bringing it up.
So it was like
I'm glad they changed some rules and they had all the issues ironed out by the time you got there.
Where's this damn knob?
Mute me like the presidential debate.
We can't dip into that part of the podcast. So it was like rebuilding the front end on a Harley.
If it wasn't for me, you never would have won because I got all the rules ironed out.
That's right.
See, I was laying the groundwork way before you.
And I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So it was going through that front end on a Harley, troubleshoot a wiring harness on a 4-wheeler. I think it was a couple clutch packs or something like that. It was stupid. And
it's stupid for us because it comes natural, but for a lot of people that is like,
I don't know. I guess.
I mean, I don't mind to admit, college was a waste of time for me. Mm-hmm. I taught them stuff, and I'm not being.
Do tell.
That may have come out a little wrong.
No, I think that came out perfect.
That's not how I meant to say that.
Well, too late.
But
what did you teach them, Professor Mike?
Well, one, how to run a true competition.
And I appreciate that.
Yes, because if it wasn't for me, guys like you would have never won. The ones that are the real winners.
Well, yeah.
No, I don't mean it quite like that. But I had worked in a mechanic shop. I'd worked at a tire shop. My aunt and uncle in the bowling alley. I'd been tinkering with engines and building stuff for a long time.
So you had real world experience.
I had real world experience. My family had been in business, so all the business stuff was pretty elementary to me at that time. It's not that everything they were teaching needed to be taught. I had just kind of learned most of it elsewhere. And I was asking questions, and I was wanting the advanced class. I was always pushing the instructors of this, and this, and going down different roads. So I always tell everybody I was in college for 2 years. I learned more in the first 2 weeks of the dealership than I did because that was real world and it was brand new off the assembly line stuff. You know what I mean? And it's real life customers, it's real life shop, it's real life employees, it's real life problems.
Right.
It's not
with variables too. It's not like a written on paper. Here's a paragraph. This is the problem. No, things change as you get through. Yeah.
So that's what I was technically trying to mean by that comment. I don't want it to be taken the wrong way, but
too late. We already did. So it was the same, similar thing. I competed against like 18 people, and I'm standing there, and my teacher, he went. My teacher was there, and Brandon was there. And I think my parents came to that. No, my parents couldn't make that one. So I'm standing there, and they're announcing all these winners, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. This was stupid. A waste of time. Can I go back? I gotta finish my stupid golf cart.
Just want to get the motor in
Yeah,
there.
like, this is my mentality. I need to pass high school so I can figure out what the heck I'm going to do with my life. I want to be a police officer. Mechanicing's kind of easy. I really want to race my quad. Let me finish my stupid golf cart. This is a waste of my time. So they announced third place. You know, it wasn't me. And I'm like, all right, well, clearly I didn't win anything. He's second place. I'm like, can I just leave now? First place, you know, they call Jason Workslot, and I'm like, what?
There's two of us?
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell? You know, my teacher's like, you idiot, go. That's you. So I'm like, what do I win? I'm arguing with him as he's like pushing me up the sides like to walk on the stage and get my stupid medal, which I have on display.
I think I threw my axe on the scrap pile out of spite.
Well, as a first place winner in the state level, I won the $4,000 in Snap-on tools.
No, look at me.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I started accumulating scholarships at that point to different tech schools. And that gave me a spot to compete nationally. Woo! So, should I stop my story? I can stop if you want.
Oh, I'm keeping my steam inside over here. You're bringing up old wounds.
I didn't do this on purpose, I promise. This is just my life. So, the national competition was in Kansas City, Missouri. Yep. I do believe that's a real area.
It is.
Okay, it's not fake anymore. So they have this national whatever you call it, conference at the convention center. And
I was supposed to be there, but never made it. Yeah, I know where you're at.
Well, you should have went.
I tried.
You could have came for me. You supported me. But that's cool. But so this was
I was already in business by the time you were competing.
So this was in the summer. This was like the second week of summer. And I'm working like at a dead end job making minimum wage, and I'm telling my teacher that I don't know if I can take off work for this. He's like, listen, you ass, you're gonna go. You're gonna take off work and you're gonna go to this competition. And I'm like, yeah, I'll see what my boss says. Like, I don't know. And I actually went out to my boss and I told him about it and what it was and everything. He's like, yeah, you're gonna go. Like, and I'm like, why do you guys all want me to do this? Like, I need to make a paycheck. I gotta put fuel in the quad. I gotta race this weekend. Like, what the hell, you know?
I need parts for my go-kart
project. I'm like,
my golf cart.
I finished the golf cart and I actually passed on that. And it did wheelies and stuff, and then the school kicked it out because apparently it wasn't safe. Which I'll get into some steam on that too. But so long story short, I did go. My parents flew out. My teacher couldn't make it, which I'm like, really? You're gonna force me to go? But he's like, listen, my daughter's getting married. I have to. I'm like, listen, I'm missing my minimum wage job right now.
You got one daughter or two.
Exactly. You know what Zoom is? Eventually they're going to come out with. Yeah. So my parents flew out, and the school actually flew me out, and I had to go to a board meeting to get this approved for the school to pay for my plane ticket. And I'm sitting there the whole time like, I think this is kind of stupid. I got my Snap-on tools. Like, I'm good. I don't know. I got work this weekend. Like, you know. So they bought the plane ticket and flew me out, and I competed with. It was a national competition, but somehow there was more than 50 people.
Yeah, because some states had regions or districts in.
Okay, I think there was. Don't quote me, but I want to say 118 competitors.
Yeah, that sounds right. I was going to say it's over 100.
Yeah. So, you know, the biggest thing that threw me for a loop is that they kind of took us around and showed us a little bit about what we were going to be doing so we could prepare. And the Harley-Davidson part about this, which most people don't actually know this, a lot of Harley-Davidson manuals are written in metric. So I had to read a metric micrometer. And up until this point, I'd never read a metric micrometer. And I remember I tried calling my teacher that night, and he didn't answer. And I'm like, well, I'm effed here, you know. So I'm on the original iPhone trying to get on Google to watch a YouTube video in 2009 about how to read a metric micrometer, which this damn screen's so blurry you can't see the lines anyway.
Dang you, 720.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm losing my mind on this. I called Brandon. I'm like, listen, I need a favor. I need you to go into the textbook and read me how to read a metric micrometer. He's like, what? I'm like, just do it. So he read to me over the phone for like 45 minutes about how to, like, what, you know, each graduation is 0.2 millimeter, 0.2 of a millimeter, or whatever. I don't remember anymore. It was the last time I read a metric micrometer. I just do the conversion now to to standard. So the next day was the competition, and I had to. It was another wiring harness issue. I had to name and identify every single part inside of a Harley Davidson V-Rod. It was truing a wheel, a spoked wheel for a motorcycle. God, what else was there? Various electrical tests with a multimeter, which I'm like, this is a con. Are you serious? You know. And the big test that they gave you 2 hours to do was you had to completely strip down a Harley Davidson cylinder head. They took the shims from you, threw them in a box, made you measure it out, valve stem height to rocker clearance, and figure out what it needed, and then go over and get the valve shims and place them in, set the head up and everything. You had 2 hours to do this. So this is where I'm going to sound like I'm full of myself, but I'm going to tell you that if I could do this, anybody can do this. So I went through this course, and I finished everything, and it was my turn to be rotated into this cylinder head thing. And it was just, they took this seriously. You had a Harley Davidson Master Tech, and I'm giving air quotes for the people who are listening to this, not watching it. And he was really nice, sitting across the table about as far as we are, and I had the stupid cylinder head here, and I'm stripping the thing apart. And I can't tell you how many cylinder heads I'd built at this point. Like I said, my teacher built and raced drag bikes. This was a very common occurrence for us. I just didn't work in metric, So I stripped this thing bare, and I'm looking through it. I measure everything. I write it down, put it back together, and I check it for clearance. And I'm like, all right, I'm done. And we're talking the whole time. And he's like, dude. I'm like, what? He's like, it's been 25 minutes. You have 2 hours. I'm like,
I don't need 2 hours.
I was like, do you want me to take it apart again? He's like, do you really think it's done right? And I'm like, put my feeler gauge out. Yeah, it's done right. And he's like, how? But I don't. I'm like, how do you need 2 hours to do a cylinder head? He's like, well, the flat rate book calls for 3. Like, well, you're overcharging somebody. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
This explains a lot.
Yeah, So, so I went through that, and all the judges were really nice. I will say that I had a good experience with that. I met a lot of good people. They weren't allowed to have my name, and I wasn't allowed to have their name, so it was kind of pointless. But, whatever. So the next day, they have this huge auditorium. I mean, there's thousands of people in this auditorium. It's like the first generation of web streaming is out, so my family back home could watch the square pixels on the screen. And they're like, I think that's so-and-so, that blob right there. Yeah, that's my boy. But they didn't tell you if you won or not, and I was under the impression that they did. So no one said anything to me. I might be getting ahead of myself where this story goes, but so I'm sitting in the audience talking to some of my friends who came from high school too, and we're just bullshitting and joking around. And they did motorcycle repair, and they're like, "Oh, that's what you competed in." I'm like, "Yeah, but I didn't win. Like they would have told me. I don't care, By the way, I'm on like the second tier of the of this amphitheater, whatever it is, and the stage is like really far down. Just to set the scene here. So they call out the bronze medal, everybody claps, and the silver, everybody claps, and then they call the gold medal from Pennsylvania, and I'm like, huh? No way. And it was like Bucks County, and I'm like, who the hell else came out here? Jason works a lot, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's me.
The sprint is on.
Yeah. And everybody's like, that's you, and I'm like, I know. They're like, get down there. I'm like, how?
I don't have a parachute.
I like jump up and I'm trying to figure out where the hell I'm going. And they call my name again and I'm yelling. I'm like, I'm here. I'm coming, I swear. And I got my medal on the stage and I called my teacher. And he actually answered this time. He's like, oh, I saw you called yesterday. I'm like, yeah, I won. No thanks to you. He's like, what do you mean you won? I'm like, I won. He's like, what'd you win? I'm like, I don't know. He's like,
a medal.
Yeah. He's like, what? I'm like, I got the gold medal. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, I won the gold medal. He's like, I go to this stupid competition every year with somebody, and nobody has ever won. He's like, and then you go. And I'm like, you forced me to. And he's like, yeah, I send you, and you go, and I can't make it, and you freaking win? Like, you're welcome. And he's like, well, what'd you win? I'm like, I don't know. We find that out later, I guess. So I won Snap-on Classic 60 Toolbox, and they gave you the basic hand tool set.
Is that the one you had here?
No, I actually bought that one. No, I sort of bought that one. I'll get into that at some point. I won 15 or 1600 hours to Carhartt to buy whatever I wanted, which was really cool. I actually still have some of them jackets. It's like, dude, what the hell? Your jacket's like $100.
I'll take 15.
Right? So I got everybody in my family a Carhartt jacket, pretty much, and I think most of them still have it. I got that, but the coolest thing was I got an $85,000 scholarship to UTI.
Really?
Which is a $45,000 program. So they were just going for the
score. I could go twice.
They were going for the Big D award here, and like, oh, the Lincoln Tech gave you $30,000. That's cute. Here's 90, or 85.
It cost me $19,528.19 to go to Lincoln Tech.
Hey, it didn't cost me a dime. That really pissed them off too.
Technically, it didn't cost me a dime either, but that's what it would have cost if I paid.
Right. So, yeah, I got that scholarship out of it, and I remember the people like interviewing me after, like, "Are you gonna take that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I was the worst winner you could ever be, because I'm still like, look, I got to get back to work.
Yeah, I still got a minimum wage job.
I got a minimum wage job I got to get to. Like, but to me, that was important. It wasn't about how much I got paid. It was I had a job I signed up for that I actually cared to like do as good as I could for this company at the time. And they're like, well, are you going to go to school? And I'm like, maybe. We'll see, So I actually took 4 or 5 months of just I worked the whole time, and UTI ended up calling me, and I had a scholarship to UTI, ATC, I think Lincoln Tech, Tech, and my biggest thing was
I think they're all the same anymore, to be honest with you.
They really pretty much are. And I was like, well, I don't really want to travel because I got to keep working, so I'll just pick whatever one's closest that gave me a full ride because I'm not paying for this crap. Excuse me. So it ended up being Universal Technical Institute, and they were in Exton, PA, which was a 40-minute drive for me, so I could still commute to school and go to work, which proved to be a pain in the ass. And by the way, I drove a Dodge Dakota that was lifted on 33s, so I drove 60 miles one way and got 4 miles to the gallon. You're seeing a trend here about how smart I am. But so I went to UTI, and I signed up. Well, they signed me up for everything, which would have been their automotive, their diesel, and they had either a Toyota or a Ford specialty class I could pick, and in their hot rod program. So I signed up for the automotive, the diesel, the hot rod I had to, and then I picked the Toyota because I figured, why not? Really, the question kind of went like this: which one's quicker?
Yeah.
And they said Ford's a week longer. I said I'll take Toyota. So I went in, I sat my first day in basic engines, and they started telling us about what antifreeze is.
Yeah, and that's about the way I was in college.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't trying to be a smart ass.
Yeah.
When I said that.
They're like, antifreeze is the stuff that you put in the radiator, and I'm like, I got to stay awake for this crap? Are you serious? And I'm like, it's like you said, I'm not
Looks
trying
like
to be
Kool-Aid. Can I drink it?
Yeah. No, don't do that. Okay. Lesson learned.
And the kid next to you is taking notes from
I know. That really did happen. He's like, this is going to be on the test. And I'm like, oh, all right.
It's also in the radiator.
Right, if you were paying attention, So that was a really important day in class because halfway through that class, someone raised their hand and they're like, can I test out of this? And I'm like, yes, can I? And they're like, well, yeah, if you know the core classes, you're allowed.
I should have asked that question.
Yeah, you should have. They're like, if you think that you can test out of the core classes, like you have that option. And I'm like,
score.
Where do I go for that? And they're like, you got to go see the guidance person assigned to you. And I'm like, who the hell's that? Like, well, take the first letter of your last name. And I'm like, okay, A. So who is this person? Like, okay, this is who you got to go see. All right. So I go down and see this magic person who's going to save me a bunch of time. And I'm like, I want to test out of some classes. And the guy's like, okay, which one? And I'm like, classes. He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I want to test out of multiple classes. He's like, well, which ones? I'm like, which ones can I test out of? And he gives me the list. And I'm like, all right. He's like, which ones? I'm like, all of them. It's like basic engines. It was all of the hot rod classes, which apparently I found out you can't do that anymore. It was standard transmission. It was suspension and undercarriage, driveline. Just like
I got to jump in here and tell you
Yeah.
one really quick story when I was in college. So we were in diesel engines class. And I had this teacher. His name was Mr. Gillenwater.
Okay.
And he was, this is the guy. You remember I said I taught them something? Yeah. I taught this guy something. This guy,
walking on the board.
This guy never overhauled an engine in his life that made it more than 10,000 miles, and he teaches us how to build it. Okay.
Excellent job.
Oh, let me tell you, this guy was a jewel.
You leave the plastic gauge in there.
So he was going on one day about how a diesel engine is nothing more than a big heat pump, which he's right. A diesel engine is a big heat pump.
It's more or less an air pump, but okay, go ahead.
Okay, so just go with me.
Yeah,
Just,
I don't want to teach you.
Don't be go all Gillenwater on me. Just stick with me. So we had our diesel engines test. There's 100 questions.
That's a lot of questions.
I answered every question with heat. Every question I answered heat.
I know where you're going.
I get the test back, and it gives me like a 2 out of 100. Oh, well, I'm fit to be tied. Let's go do this. So he goes, and of course for example, the question was, how does an engine produce oil pressure? The proper answer would be the clearances between the cam journals and the rods and mains, restriction to flow.
There you go, okay.
Well, I answered heat. He goes, tell me how heat makes that. I said, well, to have restriction, you got to have flow. To have flow, you got to have a pump. To have a pump, you got to have something to turn it. To turn it, you got to have a crankshaft. To get your crankshaft to turn, you got to have a piston. You need heat on top of it. So without heat, none of that happens. So you got to have heat.
Did he take it?
Reluctantly, but he did.
That was my favorite thing. Side note about UTI is that you could argue.
I argued.
You could argue your point on these questions.
Yeah, I forgot. I just remember the oil pressure one. I forgot some of the other ones. Every question was heat.
I had one of them in hydraulics.
How does an engine, or how's an exhaust or an engine intake or whatever? I answered heat. Well, how does heat have anything to do with that? Well, it can't suck the air in if the piston's not moving. If the piston has to have heat to move.
Yeah, or its starter. But anyway, I had one just like that, and it'll stick with me till the day I die. The question on a test was, can a return line stop a hydraulic system, or can a return line affect the speed in which a hydraulic system operates?
Well, of course.
Yeah. I said yes, and apparently I was wrong.
No, that's...
And they went over every question, and then at the end of the test, they went over the questions and correct answers, and then they gave you a chance to rebuttal that question. And everybody in that classroom raised their hand about this one, and they gave some stupid-ass reason as to why, and the teacher's like, no, it doesn't make sense. And I'm like, really? Because if one person could dispute this, everybody who got it wrong got it right. So I'm like, really? Like, am I going to have... All right, fine. I'm not a social person, but okay.
That's where we differ a little bit.
Yeah. I raise my hand, and I'm like, if you take the effing line out, does it still flow? And the guy's like, bingo.
I remember sitting in class, and I'm still good friends with him today. Aaron Crouch, my roommate from college. He was sitting there next to me, and I told him what I was going to do. I'm like, I'm answering everyone heat. He's like, you're crazy. I was like, I'm doing it. Every one of them's heat.
And anybody who doesn't actually know you would think you're nuts. But everybody who does know you would be like, yeah, that's my...
Yeah. So I remember him looking over like halfway through, and I'm over heat. I'm like, at some point, I'm not even reading the questions. I mean, I'm just committed to heat. And we get our test back, and Aaron's got like a 98 out of 100. I got 2 out of 100. He's like, I told you that was a bad decision. I said, oh, this ain't over with yet.
You don't know me very well, do you?
You want to know a funny story about Mr. Gillenwater? Right after that class, he got fired.
I wonder why.
It wasn't anything to do with me. We had this really good-looking guidance counselor.
Oh, God.
And this is how stupid this guy is.
She was in heat.
So we were, so stupid, it was a V92 Detroit.
Okay.
That was one of the, we had a little too much heat. It ran away on him.
Right. Ooh.
Whenever it ran away on him, it blew the oil pressure line off the side, and it covered his white lab coat. Well, he walked out front and got a new lab coat, and he told the guidance counselor, he goes, look, I got lubed. And she finally complained on him, and he got fired.
The one person. HR department.
The HR department.
Oh, my God. So,
sorry, if Mr. Gillenwater watches this or listens to this, somehow miraculously, he will remember these stories.
He'll be heated.
Yeah, he'll be heated.
Yeah.
I still think about that today whenever I work on a diesel engine is heat. It's one of those things that's always stuck in me.
Now that I know that, I'm going to take advantage of that.
It don't matter what happens in that engine. Heat's
right.
responsible.
So going back full circle, so I'm sitting down with this guidance person, I guess, and they're like, "You can't test out of all these classes." And I'm like, "You gave me the list and told me that these are the classes I can test out of." And we went back and forth, and I've really figured it out. They don't want you to test out of the classes because when you test out of a class, the way they structure it is each class costs like $1,475. If you fail this class, you get one free retake through your entire time there. And if you fail again, you have to pay the $1,475 to retake that class. Well, I'm on a scholarship, and when I said that, all of a sudden, no one cared. And they're like, "Oh, you think you're smart? Here you go." And
we'll help you study.
Yeah, I'm like, "I don't think I'm smart. I just don't feel like sitting through basic engines, you know?" So he's like, "All right, well, you have to test out on your own time." And I'm like, "Well, that's not going to work. I got to go straight to work after here." He's like, "Well, you can come in tomorrow on your lunch break." And I'm like, "All right, cool." So I come in on my lunch break the next day, and he gives me this packet of tests. And he's like, "Good luck." And he just sits back at his desk, and I'm going through there. I'm reading the question.
Heat.
Yeah, right, basically, yeah. No, it wasn't even that. It was like technician A says this, technician B says this. Why is technician C retarded?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, here we go. You know, so it was all multiple choice, and I hand them back to the guy, and he's like, "All right, like I'll call you tomorrow and let you know." And I'm like, "All right, cool." So I'll go back to basic engines and probably learn about oil and viscosity or something like that. And I get called down to the guidance class or counselor the next day, and I'm like, "All right, like he's gonna tell me what ones I tested out of." And I'm sitting there, and then like the whatever the hell they called him, the principal's there or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Sit down." And I'm like, "Well, this is kind of weird. Did I graduate? Like, what the hell's going on? You know?" And they're like, "You cheated." I'm like, "I beg your pardon?" And they're like, "You had to cheat." And I'm like, "How?" He was sitting there. What gives you that idea? And they're like, "There is no way that somebody could walk into this school and get these questions completely right." And I'm like, "So I passed?" And they're like, "You cheated, so you're going to be disqualified." And I'm like, "I didn't cheat." And they're like, "There's no way." And I'm like, "Explain to me how there's no way. I won a scholarship to be here by turning wrenches. Like, and you'd think that I couldn't do basic engines? Like, really?" And they're like, "Okay, well, that's kind of a point. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you the other tests, because there's an A test and a B test, and we're going to make you sit with an instructor." And I'm like, "Okay, can I do it now?" And they're like, "No, you got to come back." I'm like, "What the hell?" Like, all right,
Can I charge you for my time?
Exactly. So now, I think this was a Monday in the beginning, so now we're at like Thursday. And I'm like, "All right, fine, I'll be in tomorrow." And they're like, "Well, we're going to be away." I'm like, "I'll be in Monday." So I go in, and I remember this was a Monday, and I had to sit down, and it was the basic engines instructor. He's like, "So you think you're smart, huh?" And I'm like, "I'm just trying to not
just smart enough to get out of here."
Yeah, I was like, "I'm just trying to not be here that long." He's like, "It's a wise decision." I'm like, "See?" So they gave me the test in front of him, and like I passed them again, and they let me test out of these classes. And then they got really peeved off when I tested out of the hot rod classes, because they were very proud of these classes. And I probably should have mentioned I was building race cars at this point. I graduated out of four-wheelers and started building race cars. And me and my father were actually building the ECU for my first race car, like from scratch. You sent away for this kit.
Which your father has a computer background.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's, I can show you a picture of that computer, actually. So we did, that was like the father-son project. People do like the wooden derby cars or whatever, and me and my dad built a computer to run a race car. So that's my life. And so, like, the hot rod courses and everything, like, I knew all this. I knew how to spec a turbo. I knew compressor maps. I knew camshafts. I knew a lot of that I knew from building drag bikes in high school. So I tested out of all that. So basically, I ended up taking a 28-month program in 8 months, and they were not happy. But that was basically the most eventful part of it.
But did you also find the same as I did, is you gained more experience in the real world with real-world problems?
I did, yes.
You learned more doing that than what you ever could have in school?
I'll say I did, but I will credit UTI to some things that I didn't know at all, like hydraulics.
See, the only thing I can credit Lincoln Tech to is wasting my time.
Yeah, they definitely wasted a lot of my time too.
I mean, man, that sounds bad, and I say it out loud. I got a diploma from there, and I don't regret going there, because if I didn't go there, I'd always wonder what.
Right.
But I will have to say, after going there and graduating, I remember graduating extremely disappointed that I didn't learn something.
I remember graduating and almost being embarrassed. I mean, and I don't want, like, I'm not trying to talk down on the school. If you truly want to be a mechanic and you don't know or have the means to know.
This may be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
But if somebody comes up to me today and says, I want to be a mechanic, the first thing I'm going to tell them is find a dealership and take every piece of training they'll provide.
Yep.
Because I went to work for Mack Trucks. And Mack Trucks sent me to a lot of schools and a lot of trainings.
Right, on their dime.
On their dime.
Right.
And they challenged me. They were hard. They were difficult. And I learned a lot.
Yeah, and I'd say they're not all like that anymore. A lot of these seminars they send you to are a joke.
Well,
but
the ones I went, it was still on their dime. It was also either the latest and greatest or stuff that hasn't even hit the market yet. Whenever you're in college, the newest stuff we had at school whenever I was there was 6 or 7 years old.
I will say that good about UTI as well. Everything was new.
Yeah,
but I will say to a con point of that is that they didn't have anything old.
Yeah. So my stuff, I think 20 years ago they had, we had a bunch of N14 Cummins, and right as I was leaving, they got their first red top, their Signature 600. You know.
Right. See, I had ISX Cummins. We worked on C15 Cats, and we were using Cummins Insight on the computer, shutting down cylinders and everything. And I'm like, this is great.
We didn't even have electronic engine.
Yeah. I'm like, this is wonderful, but when the hell do these things break? They're brand freaking new, you know?
Yeah. So that's my advice for a guy, because from an employer standpoint, if I'm going to hire a mechanic, I don't really care if you went to Lincoln Tech. To be honest with you, I want to know what real life experience you got. Because
I'm going to ask you a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to go for. So now again, I don't want my doctor to have that. You know what I mean?
And I will say it a credit to the schools. I know I graduated with a lot of people, and I went to school with a lot of people who are really good mechanics, and they did not have a background before.
Well, that's a good point as well.
They are few and far between, though.
That's a few. You know, somebody that comes in completely green. You know, you and I both went in there with some.
UTI pumped out 430 or something kids in my class, and I will say out of the 430, I would probably consider hiring 7 of them. One of them being myself. And I still talk to some of these people, and they're doing well for themselves. And like I said, like a good friend of mine, his name was Joe. We actually carpooled, and he worked for UPS before this as a truck driver. Had no idea on anything besides checking oil and doing basic driver PM. And last I talked to him was probably 2 years ago. He was working for Crown Fork Trucks, and he was doing very well for himself. Yeah. But I will say that I learned automatic transmissions. That's the one class I didn't get to take in college I wanted to, because you had to choose automotive or diesel. And it was only in one of them.
And I chose diesel.
Okay.
And trucks back then didn't have automatic transmissions. Right. I'm like, I asked, can I go take that one? And they wouldn't let me do it.
Yeah, see, that was one of the core classes that you were not able to test out of, was automatic transmissions. And I wouldn't have tried to test it. It's not like
that's one class I never got. I wish I would have.
Yeah, it's not like I got this packet of classes and I just tested out of law because I'm a genius. No, it was I got this packet of classes and I was like, I know this stuff. Yeah. I'm going to test out of it all because I know it all. So I don't want to come off like I'm arrogant, but so I took automatic transmissions was a phenomenal class there. Their hydraulic classes were actually great, but I credit that more to the teacher, less of the curriculum, because he had a lot of real world experience. And all these teachers at UTI, at least, they were all in that field. That's how they were hired from. So they were decent teachers, and they're all good teachers. I didn't have any bad teachers there. All of the electrical classes, I credit them to knowing what I know now. I am very comfortable diagnosing electrical problems, and I would say a lot of that came from UTI.
See, all mine came from Mac.
Yeah. So I will say the UTI was good. I went on, I graduated with a 4.0, and I actually graduated valedictorian, which I still don't think holds any.
I graduated with a 3.9999999.
Way to go.
My very last class was Advanced Automotive Electronics. Got a 3.9 instead of 4.0.
Way to mess that one up. Did you put heat down?
No, I left heat out of that one.
Okay. So.
All right, so now you've graduated college. Where are we off to?
I turned down stupidly a job with Navistar International. They wanted to send me overseas as a contractor, which I still don't necessarily regret turning that down because I asked a lot of questions like, how am I going to be protected? Can I have a firearm to protect myself? And these were all no, and you'll figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. And they're like, well, we'll pay you $250,000 a year. You only got to work 6 months. And I'm like, that sounds way too good to be true. My dad told me something about that before. So I turned that down. And then I got a job offer from Giles and Ransom Caterpillar, and I turned them down. And I turned them down because my neighbor was telling me that he was getting me into the job that I actually work at now, which I still at this point can't tell you what it is, but I will tell you that I work for in the transportation industry for a government entity. I think that's fair. You can use your imagination; it'll get you on track.
Which is a very, very good job.
Yeah, it is, and I'm not going to say it. I walked in or I fell into it or anything like that. I did have to work pretty hard to get to the job I am now. But that didn't work out right out of college, so I went and worked for the largest concrete company on the East Coast, and that was miserable. They worked us to the bone, literally. I ruined my back there, got no medical compensation or anything like that, and I did that for 2.5 years, and I learned a lot, just like you said. Real-world experiences came out of that job, and they were very real-world, and they were very educational, and I went to a lot of training through them.
Yep.
A lot of the certifications that I got in UTI and held helped them and benefited them.
Did you ever get any of the ASC certifications?
I was an ASC Master Tech.
Yeah, I was too. That never did me any good, though.
No, I'd let them expire because I didn't care.
Yeah.
But you know where that did? Actually, this is going off in the woods again. You know where that came in handy?
Really?
My mom, and I know you're a Chevy fan, my mom has a 2010 Camaro, and she got it in 2010. And she brought it back for
So you're trying to say she bought it new?
Yeah. It was the first year of the Camaro. That's what I meant to say.
All right.
So it's the first generation of this new, or this first year of this new generation. So you know it's going to have bugs and shit stuff. So she bought it. She got a free oil change. You know, her first oil change was free, which, oh, gee, thanks, you know. So she brought it back to the dealership. And I remember they called her and they said, hey, we did your oil change, but we noticed that you need your throttle body cleaned. And my mom's like, well, what's that mean? And they're like, oh, you know, I gave her the whole 9 yards, and they told her it was going to be like $350 or something like that. And she's like, let me talk to my son first. So she like calls me real quick, and she's like, I dropped the Camaro off. They're telling me that I need my throttle body cleaned, and I'm like, no. It had 6,000 miles on it,
Yeah.
you know. And
this is going to be a problem if that's the case.
yeah. So she's like, well, he was pretty persistent about it. I said, all right, do you remember his name? And she gave me Joe Schmo, you know his name. I'm like, okay. So I called the dealership, XYZ dealer, and I talked to Joe Schmo. And I said, hey, this is Jason works a lot. Mama works a lot, has her Camaro there. What's going on with it? And he's like, oh, hi, you know, like it needs a throttle body cleaned. And I said, okay. Why does it need a throttle body cleaned? Well, you know, my technician, he's an Asc certified. And I said, okay, great. Why does it need a throttle body cleaned? He's like, oh, he noticed that it needs some work. And I said, Joe Schmo, this car came in for an oil change, right? And he's like, yeah. I said, okay, when was the last time you put oil in an engine through the throttle body? And he's like, well, it's a procedure. I said, no. It's a free oil change at 6,000 miles. I said, so you know what? I'll tell you what. Let's go in depth on this. I said, so you're going to tell me that this engine has a disgustingly dirty throttle body. You need to physically remove said throttle body and clean it, because that's what they want. I can only imagine that's what you want to charge me almost $400 for it, because you're not just going to spray an aerosol can in there and clean it, right? Because it's not already clean, right? And he's like, well, it's dirty. You know, he's an ASC certified. I'm like, listen, I'm an ASC certified Master Tech. I don't care. So if this throttle body is so disgustingly dirty, then I'm going to need to talk to your manager and his manager. And we're going to get GM on the phone because we're putting a new engine in this car. And he's like, well, why would you do that? I said, because what did this engine ingest? Ingest is a word that means what did this suck up and put inside of it, Joe Schmo. You know, I'm going to show you my ASC certification here. Technician A says this engine is doomed. You know, I'm going off on this guy.
It's not going to be Technician B.
Yeah. I'm like,
it was heat.
Yeah,
Jason. It was heat.
Yeah. A lot of heat is going to be created with all the crap that you're saying.
It's the soot from the heat.
Yeah. So I am ripping into this guy, and he's like, you know what? Maybe we'll just do this one on the house. I said, you know what? Why don't you just park it in the lot, call my mom, tell her it's done, you know? And so we stopped going to dealership XYZ. But that's the only time my Asc Certifications came in handy.
I mean, it was a good program. I think in certain places it did mean something, but I never was in a position to where it did much for me.
You know, it's strictly geared towards dealerships.
Yeah,
and that's what it is.
And it was kind of more of a status symbol than it was a qualification.
I had a guy tell me, and I do believe that this is pretty accurate. It's a sticker on the wall.
Yeah.
You know, no one knows what it means. Hell, even the organization doesn't quite know what it means.
Yeah.
Because you can't ask 25 questions of somebody and tell them that they are qualified in this field. But,
so now we know how you got to where you're at today. You left out one important part.
Yeah.
How did you get into the YouTube world?
Oh, that's a good question. As a matter of fact, I think it looked entertaining. I had just gotten out of a very cancerous relationship in my life and decided I wanted to try something new. And I'd been talking about potentially trying to start a YouTube channel for a while, and it was like how Jenna laughed at you.
Yep.
I got that too, but then I also got this as a very jealous type person. Just don't do it. I'm like, all right, whatever. So this is one of the things, and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try something new. And I was actually dating wifey at the time, and she was like, I think you should try it. I'll try it. And then I realized, kind of like for the people that are listening or watching this don't know, is that we started off 6 or 7 times with this. Like, no, this is a bad take. Yeah, this is bad. I didn't like the sound of my voice on camera. And this is where the Russian thing came from. That if you look at my channel on YouTube, the old videos, I had a fake.
You got to give us
Russian
a little,
accent.
You got to give us a little Russian.
I can get there eventually. And so I figured out this Russian accent because I actually did a lot of on-the-job training with a friend of mine now at job Z that I have, and he's from Russia, came over on the boat, and it just, by training him for like 6 months, I mean, it just wore off.
Yeah.
So he'd be like, oh, what do I have to do to the back? Oh, yeah. And I'm like, oh, you got it. And I started like saying it back to him, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to offend you. He's like, offended me? That was great. You have to keep doing it. And I'm like, all right, yeah. So I tried it, and I was like, well, how do you think it's coming? He's like, you got to really roll your R's. That's where you get the authenticity from. And I'm like, okay. So I started doing that, and I mean, we'd have fun with it. I used to go to we'd go out to dinner or something like that, and I would order in Russian. It's hysterical. But yeah, the biggest thing that I never realized with YouTube is that doing it for an extended period of time, that voice kills my throat.
Yeah.
So I remember
it's hard to, with the way we do YouTube, it's just us. It's just how stuff now happens. Well, you had to get into character.
Right, and a lot of people thought it was stupid. And I can't blame them.
Yeah.
And at the end, I thought it was stupid too. A lot of people, it was strange to do it in public.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the businesses that
it's already awkward enough to walk around, holding the camera.
Yeah, and a lot of people I don't think quite realize that until they try to do it.
Yeah.
You feel awkward just holding the camera.
Especially starting off, because nobody knows you or knows what you're doing, and you're just awkward yourself about it. As it goes on a little bit, and people...
Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier off camera. You just shove a camera in anybody's face now.
Yeah, now I'm like, I got you.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Now I could care less. But and I actually had a conversation about that with Ed from Full Tilt Grading not long ago, telling him, I'm like, you'll get over it eventually. You just deal with it.
It's still. I mean, I've been doing it for 2 years, and it's still a little bit like around my hometown. Like everybody kind of knows I'm doing it, and they just there's an idiot on YouTube again. I go out of my comfort zone a little bit. I still get a little bit paranoid about it, but it's not as bad. I'm a little more.
Yeah, and I generally don't care what many people think.
Let me tell you, that's a whole podcast.
Yeah. I guess to back up real quick, I mean, a lot of I can't film anything at work. Obviously, I signed a contract saying I wouldn't. And in the very early videos, I had mentioned where I worked because I didn't think it was a big deal, and I actually got a nice little angry letter from HR telling me not to do that ever again, and this, that, and the other thing. So that's why I can't tell anybody where I work right now, but in the near future I'll be able to tell people because I won't work there anymore.
So you started YouTube about 6 months before I did?
Roughly, yeah.
And our YouTube paths are diversely different.
Yeah.
And what I've got out of YouTube and what you got out of YouTube are two completely different things.
Yeah, I would say so.
So I guess, elaborate a little bit on what you've got out of YouTube and your experience with it, because it's quite a bit different than mine.
Well, I guess to get into that, I got to kind of cover what my YouTube channel originally was about, which was, I mean, my channel name is Jason Works a Lot because I work a lot. I mean, 75 hours a week is normal. And honestly, at this point in time, 75 hours a week is kind of slow. But so I worked full time, and then I had 3 businesses I was running, which, you know, it's kind of like how you said, I want to be my own boss. I haven't been able to make that leap into it yet because I've always had this other job, which takes a lot of my time and effort, and it also pays me pretty well.
It's a pretty good job.
Yeah, so it's hard to say no to when they're like, hey, do you want to work overtime on Saturday night? And I'm like, well, I was going to go, you know, put it above ground pool in for $800. And I'm like, well, I can make twice that by just going in. Yeah, I'll work on Saturday. You know, did Joe Schmo too? Sorry, I can't make it, you know? So that was that. And I used a lot of the equipment that I acquired. I mean, you know, it's a smaller scale and it's all used and abused pretty well. But my reasoning behind it was I was doing work to the house, and I needed I needed to pay somebody to do this work, or I could, instead of like the trees, for example, I had 3 estimates come out, and the lowest estimate I think was $85,000. I bought that mini excavator for $10,000.
Yeah.
You know, I bought a chainsaw for $900. I'm under $11,000 into this thing, and I did the entire thing myself.
And you still have the asset.
Yeah, and I own that. You know, I own that mini excavator. If I ever need to get a little bit of money real quick, I can sell it, or I can just keep using it, whatever. But back to what came out of YouTube for me is I met a lot of really, really cool people. You know, at some point we'll probably get into it, but we've got.
I mean, YouTube is most likely probably going to change your lifestyle and your career path.
Yeah, and it's already started. You know, I met Elite Earthworks was my first friend through YouTube. And Brandon, yeah. And with Brandon, he and I went to Paul Bunyan, and we met Wade. And,
you got to just tell everybody, at the time you met Wade, he had about 35,000 subscribers.
I had 72.
He had 72, and I remember you and Brandon talking about this, how you were absolutely a nervous wreck, like you seen this big celebrity.
Oh my God, I scream. My wife will tell you the story better than I will, and at some point I'll get her to tell.
For some reason, every time somebody approaches me,
yeah,
I always think about that. Like, are they like Jason? Or are they afraid to come see me? You know?
Yeah. Well, before even that, Jimmy to the top.
Oh,
crane,
to the top crane, yeah.
Yeah, he was over. He came out to visit Wade, and they did a live feed, and I was commenting back and forth.
Yeah.
And I guess Jimmy told Wade about my channel, and he went on and left a comment on one of my first videos, and he subscribed to me. And I remember laying in bed, seeing the subscription. I have a screenshot of it somewhere. Of Logger Wade is subscribed to you. I had like 7 subscribers, okay? I screamed like a little girl. And Ashton's like, what? And I'm like, look, Logger Wade subscribed to me. And like I sent the screenshot to Brandon, and he sends it back to me. He's got one too. And he's like, this is awesome. Oh my God. Yeah. And I'll tell you, it was like, because at that point,
like you hit the YouTube lottery or something.
Yeah, he was a celebrity at that point, you know. And then 2 months later, I had an opportunity to go meet him, and he was like nonstop, people coming up to him and talking to him. And I'm like, I don't want to bother him, you know. I don't want to bother him or anything like that. And finally, we're standing there like a bunch of idiots long enough, and I'm like, yeah, screw it. I grabbed my camera and shoved it right in his face.
It was always so weird for me. I was telling Junior from SLT Metalsworks this one time. Like, before I really got big into the YouTube stuff, like, people were like, oh my God, you know Logger Wade? And I'm like, yeah, he's my neighbor, you know. Because I didn't know him as Logger Wade. I just knew him as Wade.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, now that I'm in the YouTube world, I understand it a little bit more.
Yeah,
but it's like,
I mean,
I'm like, what's the big deal? He's just a dude up the hill, you know?
Right. And I look at it like, I mean, YouTube, in my opinion, it's not Hollywood because it doesn't have the politics.
Yeah.
However, it's somebody that you watch essentially on TV, and your opinion,
it's real reality TV.
Yeah, but I mean, to you, the viewer, and to me, the viewer watching Logger Wade, he's a celebrity at that point. And what you don't see is like you can interact with him more, and you get to almost know the guy. But walking up to somebody like that, I know a lot about Wade at this point because I've watched all of his videos where he tells as much as he's willing to tell about his life.
Right.
I know, Mommy or Ann. I know that's his wife.
Kiddos, yeah.
Yeah, I know his kids. I know his dog. I know what he does for a living. he doesn't know me from Tom, you know. So that's kind of weird in my opinion. And that's why one of the things I like about Wade, and I learned this from Wade, is that you answer everybody's comment. You try to get to know these people, you know, and you do a good job with it too. And I know Brandon and I always have done that. You know, you heart the comment, you comment back if you can. Eventually, it gets to be a lot, and that's something.
I still do. I still do. I don't think I've missed a comment yet. If I have, I apologize, but I've.
See, now I won't go back to old videos.
Well, if you go to your YouTube app, they're all right there.
Yeah, I don't do that. I just go into YouTube.
Oh, we need to talk.
Yeah, we will eventually.
You got so much to learn, child.
Oh, gee, thanks, Dad. Young fart. But
I guess my whole purpose of this, that question is SOT Metalworks would even be a good one to throw into this thing. Like, he don't necessarily make much money off AdSense.
No, but he has grown his business.
But he has grown his business substantially.
Right.
You haven't really grown your business. You don't really make much money off AdSense, but the opportunities that you've got through the people you know.
Right, and I credit that all the time. I'm like, you know, even if I never make a dime, even if YouTube ends up costing me money, which realistically it has. I mean, that's why I don't have T-shirts and stuff. Everybody asks me all the time, why don't you make T-shirts? Because T-shirts cost money.
Right.
I'm still paying off camera debt, which I'm not. I mean, I bought all of my equipment secondhand, but I look at it like, well, I'm not spending any more money onto this until it accumulates X amount of dollars and I break even. And that's basically where I'm at. I bought a few stickers once, and I'll probably never do that again because I didn't sell them. I mailed them out because I try to be nice to people who spend their time watching me. And then people start demanding stuff, and then I'm like, hey, man, look, I work.
It goes back to a hobby.
This is a hobby for me. And it's unfortunate, but that's what it comes to.
I guess the purpose of that is YouTube's different for everybody, so you kind of got to figure out where you plug into the equation.
Oh yeah, I
don't think you ever started YouTube thinking it would be career opportunities.
Oh, absolutely not.
I never started YouTube thinking I was going to make X amount of dollars and have X opportunities, and I don't think Junior ever started YouTube thinking
he was going to grow this business.
With his goal in mind, he was going to grow this business. It's just kind of what.
It looked like fun at the time, and I've always been interested in technology, so I was like, cool, like.
Not me, it annoys me.
Well, yeah, I get to be your tech support, which is
you are definitely a good tech support.
Yeah. But I would say out of YouTube that I've gotten more friendships and more opportunities.
It's like we said earlier, the people, the connections, it's just. I would still be doing YouTube today the same way I'm doing it right now, if it cost me money. If I didn't make any money off of it.
Honestly, it's a stress relief too. It's like a little creative outlet, and I would like to make more videos. I'd like to reiterate this point. I am extremely busy right now. We're trying to get the house on the market. It's currently end of October. We're trying to do that. I've been working 7 days a week for the last 5 weeks. I did. It's a lot going on at work. I ended up closing all of the businesses down because I don't have time for them. And it's just
warranty claims on the 120.
I got warranty claims now. We're planning to move. I think most people know now we're planning to move out here. Most people don't know why, and I don't think it's the time yet to let them know why. But that's something also that came out of YouTube.
Yep.
And that's the point that you were trying to make too, is that it was a huge once in a lifetime opportunity came my way because of YouTube. Because I met Wade, because Wade introduced me to you, and it's just. I'm not going to be your business. Well, I'm not going to be in the excavation.
That's one thing random is I post a lot of stuff that goes on in the excavating business, and I think you can attest to this. But there is multiple different versions of what goes on in Dirt Perfect's world.
That there is.
I could have 4 different channels, and they'd probably they think I have 4.
Wouldn't even cover a quarter of what goes on.
I could probably blow a few people's minds.
Yeah.
About where I've been and things I've done.
And I wish. I send pictures I shouldn't send about work to you guys and everything, but I wish I could share what I actually do with my life. And maybe at some point in time, I'll be able to go back through my phone and I can do something and show a little bit of something.
Yeah, because you do. I know we can't talk about it a whole lot, but what you do does intrigue me because it's an industry I don't know anything about, and you guys go about a lot of stuff really goofy.
We do, and we have to go around a lot of regulations from a lot of really big, important department. Oh, they think they're important. A lot of really big departments, and we work with things that people have never seen before. And I'll tell you,
And a lot of one-off equipment.
yeah, I walked in as a pretty confident diesel mechanic to this stuff, looking at it like, what the hell is this, and what's it supposed to? They're like, well, it's broken, fix it. I'm like, well, what's it not doing? Well, it's not doing this. Well, what's it supposed to do?
It needs heat, Jason. It needs heat.
Well, we had have a lot of heat. I showed you those.
Well, you got to control the heat. That's pretty. It's pretty crucial.
That was an excessive amount of heat.
Pretty crucial in joining
Yeah,
heat.
you ever seen $7 million burn up? I have. But
I lost $1,000 in a pond dam once. I cried over that.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't my $7 million. So
It was my $1,000.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
Oh, that's
yeah. So that's basically my life in a nutshell. Bringing it up to speed to 2020. I've been working around the clock as a quote unquote essential employee. I've been trying to sell my house. We'll get my house ready to be sold, which you and Aaron came out and helped with, and we were very appreciative for that. And the next chapter is going to be moving in with my parents for a little bit, and then purchasing some property out here, convincing you to be a general contractor again, and
oh man,
seeing where you already agreed to that. You can't no takesies backsies.
Is that on video?
It is.
Oh man.
Yep. Sorry.
I should have slept more that day.
Yeah, you should have. Well, you know.
So hopefully, I'm assuming we're going to try to do more of these podcasts, and if anybody wants to know. Like has a topic they want us to cover,
I think they should put it in the comments.
They should definitely put it in the comment down below. They should definitely let us know what they thought about the first one. Hopefully you learned a few things about us that you didn't know.
Yeah, we've been babbling on now for almost 2 hours.
I works a lot, talks a lot.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
But no, that's pretty much my life story in a nutshell. I mean, we could go on different layers and different avenues forever, but that's pretty much the highlights of
the cliff notes.
Highlights of where we ended up, where we're at. So,
yeah, I think we've got a couple topics on the horizon. We've got a couple people.
Yeah, we hope to have. Hopefully, we'll have a few of these. Get Logger Wade, Officer Hoover, maybe Captain Kleeman on here.
Yep.
Cover a couple different things, but yeah, I think that's a wrap on the what do we call this thing?
A few points from perfect.
I can't even remember the name.
You'll remember it eventually.
A few points from perfect. That sounds like a disaster in the making.
Sounds like a disaster that's already made.
I guess on this one you don't say thanks for watching. You say thanks for listening, right?
Yeah, thanks for following along. And if you got any comments, concerns, questions, let us know.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. That's a wrap.
See you in the next one.